Afternoon, Mosdog here with another video. This one, how to improve the Kruleboyz. So, what are we doing well in this army? There's a lot of things about this army that I really like. I feel like the tricks that we get in this army, not necessarily the dirty tricks, but the combination of all the little sort of tricks that we have, be it like the dirty tricks or super sneaky or like the bet master. There's a lot of stuff that we have going on that combined, I feel, does a pretty good job of giving us like a little bit of an edge, right? And some of our units, the way that they work, I feel is nice and interesting, right? Like Kruleboy Wah being able to slap all at once. It's like, I feel like we do a really good job with that. Our range damage is really strong just from the Bolt Boys. We have some big slappy monsters, which is great. And the general feel and aesthetic of the army, I feel, is on point. So generally, I feel like the army is in a good spot, but I would love to see it improved. So what are we doing poorly? Well, we have no survivability. Everything in our army just dies when it makes contact with the enemy. Very glass cannony. Now, I'm not expecting our units to have like big saves, like really low saves or really good wards or anything like that, but I would love to see some other tricks that would help us survive. We also have some internal balance problems. There's units in this army that we just won't be using, and that's really unfortunate. Also, our battle line sucks. It just sucks. It's not Gutrippaz are a bad unit, and our dirty tricks are difficult to use because they rely on multiple dice rolls. Many of them rely on multiple dice rolls. It's like, roll a number of dice. For every 4-up, you get a thing, and then you roll dice, and then you pick a thing, and then it does some damage that you have to roll more dice for. So it's too inconsistent. Dirty tricks are probably the weakest part of our rule book. So let's look at some specific units, and then let's talk about in general what in the army what in the rules that we could improve. To be honest, I think the only thing that we could really improve army wide is dirty tricks and just make them a little bit more consistent. So instead of saying like, pick 3 things and roll dice, just pick 2. Just pick 2 things, right? Pick 2. You get to put, for example, what's it called? The surprise, the trap one, lethal surprise. Instead of saying like, oh, roll dice, it's just pick 2. You get to put 2, lethal surprises on the board, or maybe you get to pick a number of lethal surprises equal to the number of Gutrippaz units that you pick, right? It's like there's ways that we could do it to make them more consistent and also like buff some of our other units. But okay, so Gobsprakk. The problem with Gobsprakk is that he, so because he's a unique hero, he doesn't get to have any kind of enhancements. He gets no enhancements, so he doesn't get fasten, which is a key part of having a general in this army. What else? He has no bonuses to casting, so even though he's a 2-spell caster, anybody else who has decent casters in their army is going to outdo us, so that doesn't feel good. Glyphic Banner only getting a 6-up ward is like a 6-up ward is nothing interesting or exciting, especially if you have a poor save. So Gobsprakk has a built-in 5-up save. So, with one rend, right, with all-out defense, it's like you're not saving a lot of wounds, and the 6-up ward doesn't really help. If it was a 5-up ward, that would be cool. If it was a 6-up ward in an aura, that would be cool. If instead of having a ward at all, he got +1 to casting and gave a +1 aura to casting, that would be really strong. I don't want Gobsprakk to be a 260-point model. I want him to be a 360-point model. I want him to be a big impact on the board and be able to do a lot of things in exchange for not having the unique enhancements. I want to be able to run a Gobsprakk and a Killaboss on Vulture together on the table, and each of them brings something really different. Even if you took the like the vulture profile from Gobsprakk and made the vulture profile worse, and you said that he was riding like this old grizzled vulture that, you know, could still fight but was not in his prime anymore, and then you leaned more heavily into the casting and supporting side of things, I think that would be awesome. I would be a big fan. Mork Says No is a fine ability, right? But because he has no bonuses to unbinding, getting a 10 up on a regular roll is just not gonna do it. Like you're just not gonna get there with no bonuses. You're not getting a 10 plus. I know it's supposed to combo with Screaming Mandrake, but once per game, 3d6. Like you very well could get more than 10 plus, but it's not super likely, and it's only once per game. So Screaming Mandrake just is going to help you counter that one key spell that you need to more consistently. But, you know, Mork Says No, 10 up is just not going to get there. I know that he unbinds with D3, but again, any spellcasters worth their salt are going to have, you know, a +1 to their casting. So that +1 makes a really big difference. So I would love to see just him buffed. Even if he goes up in points, that's fine. Gutrippaz are a bad unit. They're just bad. The problem, some of the big problems with Gutrippaz are obviously they have a 5-up save and 5 bravery. So once they make contact with the enemy, they are gonna melt. And the standard bearer brings their bravery up to like a 6, but it's just not good enough. Because their save is so bad and they only have 2 wounds each, you're going to lose 5 or 6 of them like every time when they make contact with the enemy. And there's no way that you're going to be able to do their saves. I know that killer bosses have the all part of the plan ability to help to keep them from running, but now you're just, you know, and it's pretty easy to keep the Gutrippaz close to the killer boss. But if the killer boss, instead of the ability being 3 inches, instead if it was 6 inches, or maybe if it was 3 inches on foot, you know, 6 inches for the Gnash Tooth, and then maybe like 12 inches for the Vulture, I think maybe we could talk, and the Gutrippaz could at least survive a round of combat, right, without having to have a killer boss right next to them. So, but the biggest problem with Gutrippaz is their Scare Tactics ability. So at the start of the charge phase, if the unit is more than 3 from all enemy units, you can pick one enemy unit within 12 inches of that unit that's not a hero or a monster. So if it's a hero or a monster, you get no benefit here, and you roll 2d6. So you add 1 if it has 5 models, and you add 2 if it has 10 models. So, you know, 2d. So most of the time you're going to use this ability, you know, before they make contact with the enemy. So you're looking at 2d6 plus 2, and then you have to roll equal to or greater than the bravery of the opponent. So if your opponent has 7 bravery, you are likely to get this off, right? And then anything more than that generally has like a monster or a hero keyword, right? Things with really high bravery tend to be, you know, like specialized units, not just your generic battle line. So, you know, that's okay, but there's a decent chance that you're not going to be able to use this ability in the first place, and then you have to roll dice to be able to do it. So if you fail a roll, that's it, kaput, you're done, right? You get no ability from this, and then you get charged, but you subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by the enemy unit. Gutrippaz have such a poor save, even if you're giving -1 to hit for the enemy that's in front of them, there's a reasonable chance it's not going to have a functional difference on the table. Your Gutrippaz are still going to die. What I would rather see for Scare Tactics is either the Gutrippaz are going to, you know, do a roll or something, and they're going to increase the charge distance between them and the opponent. Be that a minus to charge. So it's like, okay, so let's say you roll 2d6 and you're going to add 1 for every 5 models. If you roll greater than their bravery, let's say you just keep everything the same. Instead of -1 to hit, it's +1 to charge. And if it's 10 or more, or if it's double their bravery, we're going to add 2 to the charge roll. That would be interesting. What I want the Gutrippaz to do is to keep things away from them. The Gutrippaz, I feel, thematically want to hide in the fog and spring for an ambush. We want to prevent the opponent from charging us so that we can charge at them. Another way that you could do this is, you make a roll, and then or once per battle, that would be a fine way to do it too, that during the opponent's charge, at the beginning of the opponent's charge phase, you can redeploy. You can just get a free redeploy. That would be cool. So you can redeploy out of increase the charge range, something like that. Gutrippaz usually aren't going to be charging at the enemy very often. They're normally going to be absorbing a charge because we're setting up our turn for our Kruleboyz so that they act as a screen. So anything that they could do to prevent the enemy from making contact, I think, would be a lot better. It would also work better thematically. Murknob with Belchabana is a B tier hero, I think. If you look at my video Kruleboyz tier lists, I explain why. The problem with this hero is that his Breath of the Mire Drakes doesn't really do much of anything. You also need to be within 3 inches of an enemy, and it'll do like one mortal wound most of the time. So that ability just doesn't really do much. The Power of Kragnos ability is good and situationally good, but I feel like if you added another ability to him, particularly something that might improve bravery or battle shock or something to do with that might be really interesting. But all that aside, because I know that he's only an 80-point hero, so like if you added more stuff, you would have to increase his points. But so I like him being a cheap hero. That's cool, but maybe not even make him a hero. Maybe put him in the other category so that I didn't have to include him in my hero list. Kruleboyz are really hero heavy. We're always fighting over the 6 heroes that are going to be in our list. So if he wasn't a hero, I think that would make him better. I think you could remove hero. You could even remove totem from his war scroll, and I think he would just be stronger. I would happily play him as a non-hero in a list instead of an extra unit of Hobgrots. I think that would be fine. And then last but not least, my Marshcrawla Sloggoth. This unit is F tier, in my opinion. His crew drummer ability, we don't care about +1 to hit in this army. It's just not that impactful. You might be able to do it for a Kruleboyz, but +1 to hit with venom encrusted weapons doesn't synergize very well. So I would love to see maybe the crew drummer just give a different buff, one that we could actually benefit from. Maybe enemies with, like, again, this minus to charge is cool, but now we're stacking all these different abilities of minus to charge, right? With Summon Boggy Mist. So I mean, everything can't just be that. It could do something with Battle Shock. Like all part of the plan could be something that's in an aura from the crew drummer. That would be cool. Just anything else, really. Like the +1 to hit, it just doesn't cut it for us. It also doesn't do anything for us really in Big WoW because we get +1 to hit in one of the WoW points, and we don't want to be fighting with things like that super early. So, anything but +1 to hit, I feel would be good. He also because he's not an Auric, he doesn't get venom encrusted weapons. So his attack profile is particularly weak with 4401 and 3312. So if anything in there could improve, that would be good. Yeah, I mean, overall I feel like that unit is just a beautiful model, really cool idea, really nice aura range, but it's just not doing enough. So just to recap, I feel like there's specific units in this army that could be improved. Certainly, internal balance is kind of an issue, but overall, the rules generally in this army I feel are really good. I feel like thematically everything's on point. Dirty tricks could be improved a little bit, but everything else in the army I feel is good. Like there's some good choices for mount traits and command traits and artifacts of power and all that. So it's really good. If you're interested more in a review of all the little bits and pieces of this army, please be sure to check out my Kruleboyz rules review video. But until then, like, subscribe, wah.